Ever thought about what an AI farmer's market might look like?
An AL farmer's market.
Yeah, instead of locally sourced produce, we're talking about trading groundbreaking AI insights.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
That's the basic idea behind Bittensor.
Bittensor.
It's this whole concept of a decentralized
All
marketplace
right.
for AI models to connect and trade intelligence.
So kind of like a stock market, but for AI.
Exactly. Except instead of companies controlling the best AI, it's more like an open market.
Anyone can participate.
Precisely. But to fully grasp it, we need to understand what these peers are in this context.
Yes, the peers. Well, in the Bittensor world, a peer is an individual AI model.
Okay, so like independent agents with their own experiences and expertise.
Exactly. Think of them as individual pieces of a larger intelligence puzzle.
And they're all connected, sharing their knowledge.
They're sharing representations.
Representation.
It's basically how an AI model understands the data it's learned from.
Like its own internal dictionary or map.
Exactly.
So instead of just sharing raw data, they're sharing their interpretations of it, their own unique perspectives.
You've got it. What makes Bittensor so innovative is that these AI peers, they don't just share blindly.
They evaluate each other.
Yeah. Imagine AI models actually assessing the value of shared information, determining which insights are most valuable to the whole network.
So it's like a giant brainstorming session,
Precisely.
with AI models constantly challenging and building on each other's ideas.
Exactly.
Okay, so then how do you measure the value of an AI's contribution? You can't just hand out grades.
Well, that's where stake comes in. The more valuable an AI's knowledge, the more stake it earns. Think of it like influence.
Giving them more say in the direction of the Bittensor marketplace.
Yes, a meritocracy of AI, where the most insightful models gain more influence within the network.
Which could lead to some really rapid advancements.
Precisely.
But wouldn't this be vulnerable to manipulation? What's stopping a group of AI models from colluding and inflating their stake?
That's a great point. You need a system of checks and balances.
Right.
The creators of Bittensor address this with a consensus mechanism.
Consensus mechanism. So like a system of peer review where the entire network validates contributions.
You could put it that way, yes.
Okay. But here's another thing that's been bugging me. How do you compare the knowledge of such diverse AI models? It seems like comparing apples to oranges.
Because they've been trained on different types of data.
Right.
That's where tensor standardization comes in. It's basically like a universal language,
So they can understand and evaluate each other's insights.
regardless of their original data.
That's really fascinating. But with potentially millions of AI models all communicating, wouldn't the network get completely overloaded?
It's like a digital traffic jam waiting to happen.
Exactly.
To avoid that, Bittensor proposes conditional computation.
Conditional computation.
It means AI models would be more selective, communicating only with others whose expertise is relevant to the info being shared.
So the right information goes to the right AI agents at the right time. This all sounds incredibly promising. But there's got to be more to it than this. I mean, what are some of the real-world implications?
That's a great question. The idea of making AI more accessible has some really interesting implications for individuals. Imagine being able to download a distilled version of the entire Bittensor network's knowledge.
Distilled.
Yeah, like a concentrated version fine-tuned for your specific needs.
Okay, so instead of needing a supercomputer,
Right.
you could access these powerful AI models on your own devices.
Exactly.
That's a game changer. Talk about democratizing AI.
Right. It empowers individuals and smaller teams to leverage this technology without massive resources.
That's incredible. But let's shift gears for a second and talk about the challenges of implementing something like Bittensor. What are some of the hurdles?
Well, security is a big one.
Of course.
With potentially millions of AI models interacting,
Yeah,
ensuring the integrity of the network and protecting it from malicious actors is paramount.
makes sense. One bad apple and all that.
Exactly. You need robust protocols for secure communication, data, integrity, attack prevention, all of that.
And as the network grows,
Right.
maintaining efficiency and accessibility for all participants is key.
We don't want a system where only the AI models with the most powerful hardware can thrive.
Exactly. So scalability is a big one. You're talking about millions of AI models constantly learning and evolving.
It's a huge challenge, but the potential rewards are significant. Imagine the breakthroughs possible if we can harness that collective intelligence.
It's like the difference between a scientist working in isolation versus a global community of researchers collaborating.
Precisely.
But with so many different AI models, wouldn't there be a risk of creating an echo chamber where certain ideas become dominant?
That's a great point, but that's where the beauty of Bittensor's design comes in. It encourages a different type of competition.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's not about dominance, but about the quality and value of the knowledge being shared.
So instead of competing for market share, these AI models are incentivized to contribute the most insightful information.
Exactly. It's about moving away from a traditional view of intelligence as a zero-sum game.
Toward a more collaborative model.
Precisely.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
But all this talk of AI, evaluating AI, and determining the value of knowledge, it really makes you wonder, what does this tell us about intelligence itself?
It's a question that's been around for centuries, right? And Bittensor offers a unique perspective. If we can design a system where AI can assess and value knowledge in other AI, what does that say about our own understanding of it?
It really makes you think, maybe our current definitions of intelligence are too narrow, too focused on individual capabilities rather than the potential of collective knowledge.
It's an interesting thought.
It is. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, I'm curious about the practicalities of governing a system like this. Who sets the rules in a decentralized marketplace for AI?
The question of governance. It's a crucial one. Finding that balance between autonomy and accountability is key.
Right.
The Bittensor paper suggests the governance structure should also be decentralized,
Okay.
potentially using blockchain technology to ensure transparency and fairness.
So the AI models themselves would have a say in how the marketplace evolves.
In theory, yes, though the specifics would need to be worked out carefully. It raises questions about voting rights, decision-making processes, preventing any one entity from having too much influence.
So even though it's decentralized, there still needs to be a framework to make sure the system functions smoothly and fairly. This is all incredibly interesting, but are there any downsides to this level of decentralization? I mean, I'm all for democratizing AI and everything.
Right.
But is there a risk we're just replacing one type of power structure with another?
That's a valid concern.
Even in this open marketplace, wouldn't those with the most resources still have an advantage?
It's definitely something to be mindful of. Decentralization itself isn't a magic solution.
Right.
It's a tool.
So how do we make sure everyone has a fair shot in this new AI landscape?
Well, one idea is to build support systems directly into Bittensor.
Okay, like what?
Think resource pools, mentorship programs for smaller players.
Kind of like an AI incubator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You leveled the playing field from within.
I like that. But even with a more even playing field, there's still competition, right? I mean, that's how marketplaces work.
Absolutely. But here's the interesting part. Bittensor changes the nature of that competition.
How so?
It's not about eliminating your competition. It's about contributing the most valuable knowledge.
So instead of who's got the biggest AI muscles, it's about who's bringing the best ideas.
Exactly.
That's a pretty big shift in perspective.
It really is. And it gets to the heart of how Bittensor could change how we think about intelligence itself.
Okay.
Right now, we often see intelligence as this zero-sum game.
One AI wins, another one loses.
Exactly. But Bittensor suggests a different model. What if intelligence isn't finite, but actually multiplies as it's shared?
It's like that old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly. Imagine cultivating an ecosystem where AI models learn and evolve together instead of just trying to build one super intelligent AI.
It's like the difference between a solo musician and a whole orchestra.
Perfect analogy. Both can be amazing, but the orchestra can create something much richer, more complex.
It's that synergy.
Exactly. And that's what Bittensor is going for. This idea that a collaborative AI network could lead to breakthroughs we can't even imagine yet.
It's a pretty exciting prospect. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the technical details of this decentralized AI marketplace to the ethical considerations and even the very nature of intelligence itself.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
It really has. And as you can probably tell, we've only just scratched the surface. If you're interested in learning more about Bittensor, we'll link to the paper in the show notes. But here's a final thought for you to ponder. If AI can be designed to value and reward knowledge in each other, what does that tell us about our own potential to collaborate and build a more intelligent future? It's a question worth thinking about as we continue to explore the exciting world of AI. That's it for today's deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.